Welcome to Melt University. This series will help you build your brand, inform you on a variety of career paths, and introduce you to top executives in sports and marketing. Now, here's your host, the President and CEO of Melt, one of the largest independent sports and event marketing agencies in the country, Vince Thompson.
Welcome back, students. Virtual Melt University. We are rolling on into the fall, and hopefully, if you're listening to this, you're safely ensconced in your dorm, your fraternity, sorority house, your apartment, your campus, your school. You're safe and sound. Hopefully got a little football playing. It's a beautiful autumn day here in Atlanta. And I know it is in Memphis as well. And we've got a really, really special guest. And I got to get this right. Steve Pacheco. Am I close?
You're in the ballpark.
All right, to help me out of here again.
I always call it Pacheco, but that's just me.
Oh, wait. No, wait a minute. I'm looking at my wrong. I just wrote it down. Pacheco. Steve Pacheco. Now, what type of name is that, Steve Pacheco, before I go further?
I am the son of an immigrant, Vince. My father's father was born just outside of Lisbon, Portugal. So
wow.
We're Portuguese, which are a passionate people, as you may well know.
Yeah, I've always wanted to visit there one day, so hopefully. But the President CEO of the American Advertising Federation, which is we're going to talk about the great programs that the AAF offers college students in this period of time in our new COVID world, virtual internship world, virtual career fairs, virtual, Zoom, but a lot of silver linings in that. But he and I are kind of, new fast friends, brothers from another mother. And, Steve, I'm from a foreign country as well. I'm from Lower Alabama, which we consider, a land and island to within itself as well. But so we can talk about that. But Memphis guy, graduated University of Memphis, degree in journalism, amazing career. He's going to tell a great story today when he was working for International Paper and woke up and was, as a young man, was managing a worldwide global Olympic sponsorship in the Atlanta 1996 Olympics, which was near and dear to my heart as well. 30 years industry experience, a lot of the famous FedEx commercials that you saw early on. He was in charge of all of that, 12 Super Bowl commercials. I'm not sure anybody's got that. FedEx Cup, NFL, NASCAR ad campaigns. Huge fan of Fred Smith, the founder of FedEx, one of the great entrepreneurs. And so to be able to be by Fred Smith's side for many, many years, you got to have a little horsepower there. Prior to AAF was the CMO of Ducks Unlimited, a great nature conservancy organization and conservation. Sounds like a lot of fun to me. I wanted to be the CMO of Bassmasters and never quite made it to that, but man after my own heart. So, and he's an award winner. I mean, this guy's, the Barton Cummings Gold Medal Award, Ad Club New York Advertising Person of the Year, not the Ad Club of Atlanta or Memphis, but New York City, Madison Avenue. So, Steve Pacheco, welcome to Virtual Melt University.
Thank you, Vince. I've been looking forward to this since we first started talking about it, and I just am in awe of what you're doing for the students and how committed you are to their success and giving back some of your great experience and knowledge and wisdom and counsel to these young people who need it so badly right now.
Well, thank you. I've been very blessed, and when I was working through Auburn University in sports information, and it was a big old place for me coming out of a town of 800 people, got very fortunate. Sports information, and I made a commitment to myself and a vow to myself then that if I was ever able to be in a position to give back to others and other students, that I would. And for many years, I've lectured on college campuses, and then we had this amazing intern program. 500 applications, 40 kids, but I always kind of had this gnawing or yearning to take it outside the walls of the agency. And when the pandemic hit, we were hearing from so many kids, and I said, we can't abandon our kids. We got to do the right thing. And then so we kind of pivoted and built virtual Melt U, and a lot of really great things are coming out of it. But if you don't lose anybody, in this pandemic, because it's really, really, really terrible, there's a lot of silver linings that are going to come out of that as well. So we'll talk about that. But we like to start by throwing it all the way back to your time at the University of Memphis, degree in journalism, similar to me. We always like to analyze where that core or seed of passion for what you do now was developed. Because one thing, Steve, we talk a lot to our kids about is follow your heart, pursue your passion with zeal. So talk about your experience, because you still are passionate about everything you do, but I know it had to start at such an early age.
Well, it did for me, Vince, and I love the old saying of the past is prologue, and everything that you go through, I think, equips you for something else that's coming in your life, whether you see it coming or not. It's it's a fascinating opportunity to look back and see where you've come from and the lessons that you've learned along the way. And in most cases, they didn't come from classroom, is what I'll tell you. It's life will beat you up, and it's a matter of how you respond to it that changes your trajectory or not, right? I've always been a big car guy. I love cars and everything about cars. My father was in the car business for years and years and years. And so when he first threw me a set of keys at age 14 or 15 and saw how aggressively I drove, he thought it might be better to get this kid some real professional help. And so I took a lot of classes in high performance driving and just to try to not be unsafe in a car with a lot of horsepower, right? And I've been addicted to speed ever since, I think. But Dad saw the power of me, having all that horsepower underneath me, but doing it in a disciplined way. So a good driver always looks ahead of the curve and figures out where his out is. And I learned that at a pretty early age. Before most people were even driving, I was learning how to drive, high performance environment. And I got to tell you, it's speed kills, but it's also incredibly exhilarating, right? And used to your advantage. And I look at FedEx as a first mover in the overnight wars, right? I mean, they speed got them to where they are now. You didn't build your business by going about it slowly. I promise you that. And I bring that up in today's time and age because so many of the young people that we're talking to at the American Advertising Federation are wanting it to happen now. And you and I both know it just doesn't happen overnight. You got to be patient. You got to take the long view. And so back to answer your question, here I was at the University of Memphis, and I fell in favor with a really great advisor. His name was Ron Spielberger. And I joke half the time that Ron probably saved my life. He certainly saved my professional life. I was a very undisciplined student is how I would characterize myself.
Yeah, I think that term could apply to me as well.
My dad also asked me after my 5th year in college. He said, I thought this was a 4-year deal. And I said, Dad, you got to be patient with me. I'm trying to find myself. He said, well, you're going to find yourself homeless and hungry because I'm about to cut you off. And that was the good wisdom that I needed at the time. So I wound up getting a little bit more serious, went back to Memphis State University and connected with Ron, and he got me on the right path. And I wrote about it in a tribute to him. He passed away 3-4 years ago, and it was unfortunate, but I got to speak at his funeral and gave his family the right respect that Ron helped turn me around and set me on the right path. And part of that was just making me go out and sell ads for the local college newspaper. Wow. To do, but he thought there'd be some value in it. It turns out there really was value in it.
Well, and you covered a lot of topics, and one we'll get in a little bit, but one malady that I see, because I'm like you, we see hundreds of kids, thousands of kids, and they work for me and all that, is that there's really no such thing as instant gratification. There's really not. You see a unicorn like a Zuckerberg, but I've been doing what I'm doing for 40 years. You've been doing what you're doing for 40 years, and it's a grind. And I counsel these kids. I'm like, it's okay to move around if you get to a place you don't like or something like that, but you don't need to leave after 3 months into a job. I mean, that's like, you can't figure anything out in any relationship in 3 months, personal, romantic, professional. And I just say, hey, look, give it an opportunity. Your foot's in the door. And obviously now, in a COVID world, these opportunities are going to be fewer and farther apart. So, talk about that a little bit, and what wisdom can we impart on, you and I looking back after 4 decades in the business on these kids, just to, as fast as the world moves, patience really is a virtue, right?
Well, 100%. And I am the least patient person you'll ever talk to, Vince. I'm the guy that stands by the microwave and yells at it to hurry up, right? It's
Well, the 2 old buzzards sitting on the limb, right? Patience my ass, I want to kill something.
Now you sound like my duck hunting friends. Exactly. Part of it is the wisdom, after being beat up a few years in a row, you start to get that scar tissue built up. Rocky IV wasn't as good as Rocky I, right? But but let's admit that there's pain in the process, and all along the journey, you're not going to get treated like a snowflake. You're going to get beat up a lot. And I tell you what, the best stories come out of the fights that you lost, right? Not the ones you won.
Right.
I do believe that young people these days, because of just the pure velocity of how things are happening. And
yeah, that's the key. That's the key word, is velocity.
I'm a brand marketer at heart, and I do consciously believe that no brands are built overnight. And Facebook is now, not 2 years old; they're 12 years old. They have been around,
right?
Thing, and it does take a while to build a meaningful and lasting brand. FedEx is coming up on 50 years in business, and
is it really?
I can't imagine a world without FedEx, and neither can this current generation.
And by the way, wasn't that his Harvard thesis, and he didn't get a very good grade on it?
It was Yale.
Yale.
And he said he got what he normally got, which was about a C-. So, yeah, they didn't think it was feasible. I guess we know who won that one.
Mm-hmm.
The goal is to move with, I love the idea of move fast and break things. I really do. I can support that.
Get some speeding tickets, right?
Yeah.
Get some traffic tickets, right?
Absolutely. At one point, I was carrying 3 different driver's licenses in my wallet, because based on who would pull me over, I'd have to show a different license so I wouldn't go to jail.
Don't be giving these kids these ideas now.
Hey guys, here's a pro tip: get a driver's license from someplace like Wyoming, where I'm
right.
Never seen it before and don't know what to do with it.
Right.
And then just talk real slow when he pulls you over.
Right. Yeah, really slow.
But I do believe at moving at the pace of what the environment mandates and dictates. And, nowadays you can call a 2-second exposure an ad. And I don't know if that's legit or not, but people have about 2 or 3 seconds to really engage with a brand or a meaningful conversation. And then they're off to the next thing. There's too much out there to keep them engaged and involved. So you've got to move fast, and you've got to change with the times, but you also have to let the regular old lessons apply as well. And I think some of those are
right. Well, we tell our kids, it's like, this virtual environment, goodness knows how long it's going to last. I mean, maybe it's going to, maybe nobody's ever coming back to their offices. I don't know. I mean, but still the same old rules apply. Every interaction with you or me or potential internship or potential employer is in the form of an audition. And, we're busy too, but we've all had to readjust or adapt to a new virtual world as well. And there actually are more and better opportunities to interact with high-level CEOs because they're at home. They are on their computers. You don't have to try to figure out how to make an appointment. You can snag somebody 10 minutes on the virtual world, as well. And we're going to dive into that in just a little bit. But let's just kind of take it back a little bit, because you have had a vaunted career. Some of my favorite commercials were those great FedEx commercials, back in the day. And then, but even before that, you had a fortunate experience, I'll call it, or a fortunate encounter. You're working at International Paper, Director of Advertising and Marketing Communications. And then the next thing you know, you're in the middle of Centennial Olympic Park in the 96 Olympics. So talk about risk, talk about the deep end, talking about willingness to take risks, pushing yourself out of the comfort zone. I mean, you told me the story the other day. It's a pretty incredible story.
Well, it's one of those pivot points for me, Vance, where, first of all, let me back up and tell you that Memphis is not the epicenter of advertising or sports marketing by any stretch of the imagination.
But there have been some great ones come out of there, including yourself.
Well, and I think it's that Memphis moxie. We're pretty scrappy here.
It might be the barbecue. I don't know.
And the barbecue helps. It really does. But it's that call that you never expect that comes in. And this was right before Thanksgiving. I remember it like it was yesterday. And the 96.
So this was Thanksgiving of 95?
Yes.
Wow.
2 days before Thanksgiving, got called in to go to the office the day before Thanksgiving for this special called meeting. Which
is really never good, usually.
Yeah, I thought, well, okay, I'm getting fired for Christmas. This is
Merry Christmas.
To be good, yeah. And turns out that Georgia Pacific had sort of committed to sponsor the 96 Olympics in their own backyard in Atlanta. They got cold feet, and at the time when they were supposed to sign the contract, they backed out and said, we're not going to do it. So it was a pretty big sponsorship at the time.
Right.
Atlantic Organizing Committee started looking around for other paper companies because part of Georgia Pacific's contribution was cash, and part of it was building products and paper and all that. And so they looked to the next paper company on the list was International Paper. They quickly structured a deal, and I got told about it 2 days before Thanksgiving and said, by May, you've got to have a full sports marketing plan in place to host buyers from all around the world.
Well, because companies usually work on these things for years.
Absolutely. I mean, you're talking about a 2-year on-ramp to something like this, and we had 6 months. So part of me, I remember driving home thinking, how in the world are we going to do this? We don't even have a sports marketing team. Hell, we don't have a marketing team. I don't know the first thing about putting on sports marketing. And this is the Olympics. This is not,
because marketing International Paper wasn't necessarily a consumer-facing effort, right? So
it was a lot of marketing to the trade, a lot of promotional work to designers and people
and customers all over the world. And I mean, it's obviously a vaunted brand.
Yeah, but it's an industrial marketer largely, and
correct,
consumer marketer. So. Jumped in a gentleman by the name of Jim Millman, Mill Sports.
One of the legends.
Highly referred to me, connected with him. They helped hold our hand and steer us through all that, which was
probably only because Melt was not around yet at 96. That's the only reason, I'm sure.
I would have reached out to Vince Thompson if I'd known you then. I promise I would have. But I just went down the yellow pages and found the biggest name I could find in sports marketing.
Oh, he's pioneer. There's no doubt.
And even he thought the timeline was aggressive. Like, what? You just now hearing about this? You've been sandbagging on me. So it was actually a really great learning experience. By the way, we got to partner with IBM.
Wow.
An Olympic sponsor, and we set up the media village for the 96 Summer Olympics in Atlanta. And remember, this is pre-internet days, or just at the dawning of the internet. So
see, people forget that, right? Like I remember when you guys set that media village up in that next to Centennial Park. I was like, man, this is, and I went in there one time and I was like, man, this is genius.
Well, and back then you literally had to produce a new book every day with all the stats and all the details and all the figures. And IBM software and hardware was being used, and we were putting the paper in there, and we got to where we would color code the books each day to show people the new books, and the press would gather around us and wait for the books to come off the line, and then take them and run back and write their stories. And it was pretty archaic if you think about it.
That's what we had to do, though, right?
Well, you made it work, right? You just did. And the other part of the contribution was that International Paper donated a lot of the building products literally rebuilt the Colorado Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs.
I didn't know that.
And did a lot of showcasing of their building products and all the different things that they made in the industrial area there. So it was really a great opportunity for that company to demonstrate their power and their breadth of offerings. We hosted a ton of customers down there in Atlanta, and I was there when Muhammad Ali lit the flame. I mean, that was a magical moment, you know?
Oh, I mean, does it get any better? So where does one go after activating the 96 Olympics? Where, I mean, what else is there left in your career at such a young age? What happened?
Yeah, I mean, at the time, you know, I'm barely 35, I guess, and had a brand new baby at home. Stephen was born in January of '96, and of course, those 5 months between January and June, I spent on the road, bouncing all over the place, filming commercials, getting things in place, going to Colorado Springs to get work approved by the U.S. Olympic Committee, fly to New York to get things approved by the International Olympic Committee, just all over the place.
And it's a lot. It was a lot harder back then than it is now, where we're on Zooms and emails, and I mean, a fax machine was almost a luxury.
Oh yeah, I mean, we're talking about tucking a tape under your arm and jumping on a plane and going to show.
Nobody believes that, by the way. They I mean, remember sitting around Avid and time codes and
yeah, this was all before that. So it taught me a lot about being fast and furious, and it was ultimately, you know, great learning. But after that, I was a little bit burned out, wanted to take some time off. Not sure that I wanted to stay in that industry, but I knew that the sports thing was a pretty powerful way to connect people with their passions, right? So, and the fact that we pulled it off was just still an amazement. And so I wanted to take some time off and reintroduce myself to my wife and my
yeah, because you probably didn't sleep a lot for those 8 months.
I didn't. I really didn't. And I needed desperately to kind of ground myself. So, jumped in and found out about this opening at Memphis's largest employer, FedEx.
So there's an opening there right then.
Yeah, for an advertising manager. And at the time I was a director level. So I thought, why do I want to downgrade my title? But wait a minute, it is a bigger company, and they actually do marketing and advertising and sports marketing. So maybe this would be a good move. It was interesting, Vince, because I got ultimately recommended by Tom Carey, who at the time was president of BBDO New York.
Oh yeah.
Hammer Mill Copy Papers was a brand of international paper. They had a little trade advertising account at BBDO, and I'd been getting some pretty good work out of those guys. And they saw that I was able to efficiently and effectively get good work out of that big agency for a relatively small trade brand. Tom Carey recommended me to the people at FedEx who were looking for someone to step in for the advertising side. And I get a call from a guy named David Schoenfeld, who at the time was Senior Vice President of Marketing for FedEx. We had lunch on a Tuesday. He made me an offer on Thursday, and I started the next Monday.
Wow.
So another quick velocity story is that it happened pretty quickly once it got going.
So that would have been 97, right?
Yeah, September of 97 is when I joined FedEx.
You took a little time off and then, kind of gathered yourself. So as we tell our students, a lot of this is a function of timing. Your path's going to be your path, but also luck is with timing and opportunity intersect. And don't be afraid to, you weren't afraid to take on the assignment or IP in the Olympics, and then overnight shipping. People forget in 97, we're like, what? Just like, and some of the great commercials of all time. But so again, you made your own luck and you made yourself timing, but you were willing to dive into the deep end in somewhat of a still nascent industry, right?
Well, yes. And what I would attribute that to, Vince, part of it is, and this is really important for today's young professionals or folks just getting started out, time and space don't matter. The fact that I was from Memphis and the fact that you're from LA, Lower Alabama, doesn't matter, because the connections that you're going to make are far greater than that. I was dealing with world-class marketers from IBM, and world-class marketers from Coke, and world-class marketers who had Olympic sponsorship platforms, and I was holding my own. I mean, I was this punchy kid from Memphis. They didn't know what
I remember that. Yeah.
but you had to earn your own respect, and you had to carve out, notoriety in your own way. And I think the work actually powered through, and people said, well, this kid's got the chops and he's making stuff happen, and it's just him. How is he doing this? So don't be afraid to accept the challenge and punch above your weight. And also just make sure that you know that everybody's always watching,
Right. Right.
Now more than ever, that's true. But
Yep.
people notice how you go about your work. Your work ethic is going to be a big, big way that they define you. But also the fact that you just carry yourself in a way that says, I've done this before. And people will recognize that, and they'll make other opportunities happen for the right people. You got to know that you're always being watched, and what people are looking for either measures up or doesn't, and they're measuring you against all the other people they've seen
all the time. And that's what we tell the kids. It's like, hey, look, and now it moves at the speed of light. You got all this crazy social media. Thank God social media wasn't around when you were at Memphis or I was at Auburn, because we'd be in a lot of trouble. But I want to stay on FedEx just a little bit more.
Sure.
12 Super Bowl commercials, the creation of the FedEx Cup. I mean, that's a lot of pressure to produce a Super Bowl commercial. And out of all of the famous ones, do you have a favorite? So talk about the process of how you evolved the sophistication of marketing an overnight express product, because it still was, there was still a lot of early adaptation going on back in those days. I remember it very, very clear. In fact, I had a client called Hummingbird in Eufaula, Alabama, and they prided themselves on overnight repairs, and that's how they differentiated themselves from their competitor. And somehow the chairman got connected with Fred Smith, I think through Johnny Morris of Bass Pro, and Fred Smith flew. It was the greatest day of my life. Flew to Eufaula, and it was the smallest airport at the time that would pick up and receive things overnight to get these, because the fishermen can't be without their fish finder, obviously. And so it's just amazing.
Well, and just like that, Vince, there are thousands of stories about FedEx's role in growing businesses and commerce across the globe. I never get tired of those. But at the very basis, I think we're all good storytellers, or we wouldn't be in this business. And I believe that the narrative is always important. I'm a storyteller at heart. And back to your question about the Super Bowls, I joke, but I think I've been in more Super Bowls than Tom Brady. Because I don't know of that many brands or people that have had 12 straight years of Super Bowl ads. It's the highest stakes in the world of advertising. Obviously, you've got 110 million plus people watching. You've got millions of dollars on the line, and you've got incredible competition from some of the world's biggest and best.
Well, a lot of people tune in just for the commercials, not the game.
Well, and they get entertained as well, but they're also hypercritical, yeah. And you can't find the perfect ad that makes everybody happy. But USA Today Ad Meter always was kind to us, and we typically did pretty well. I'm not really allowed to have favorites. They're like your kids; you got to love all of them. Although I will tell you that little spot we did called Stick, which was actually, I refer to as a caveman. It was
right.
One of the best stories that I've ever been able to commit to broadcast. And it's really about a caveman who didn't use FedEx and got fired. The old joke of nobody ever got fired for not using FedEx, for using FedEx. You might get fired for not using FedEx. We brought that to light. We had the good fortune that year to win a Primetime Emmy Award for that particular commercial, and it punched way above its weight. And we were in there against, I think Budweiser that year had 10 spots, and we beat them all. So that one holds up.
Right.
Was a great story, and it personified part of my mantra while I was there was to have simple stories well told.
Amen.
People do want to hear a story, but you got to tell it well. And the Super Bowl, you got to craft it just right. And I'll tell you, the hours and nights and days that I spent on crafting those commercials and getting them to be just the best that they could be. I'll never regret those hours spent on that, because I personally had a lot of pride in what we put on air.
Yeah, well, I mean, that may be a record. Like I said, you've been in more Super Bowls than Tom Brady, and 12 Super Bowls is a heck of a track record, as we say, punching above our weight. But so let's move it up a little bit. You are President CEO of the American Advertising Federation, and I really have a great respect for the organization and industry leaders. But as we kind of continue down a road together and a path together, I've really, really just been impressed and blown away at your commitment and the Federation's commitment to the next generation of marketers and advertising executives, and the programs that you have. And for our students who are listening, they may not know about these programs. So maybe talk about some of the programs, how COVID has impacted these, and how it could create opportunities in a virtual environment, what they need to do to sign up for them through their schools and things of that nature, because I'm going to be very involved in helping them. And you guys also have that commitment to the next generation of advertising and marketing executives.
Absolutely, Vince. And there's no more noble challenge ahead of us than to take the young people of today and make them the next generation of leaders in advertising, marketing, and media. We take that very, very seriously. And I'll tell you, it's, I've had jobs throughout my career, but this is actually a calling. I feel very compelled to actually give something back to the industry that's been so good to me, and to be able to be put in a place where I can reach back and help others achieve their goals is really, really important to me. I cashed out a while back, and I could have just taken it easy and been sitting on a beach somewhere, but it turns out I'm not wired that way. I gotta stay at a high RPM. And for me, the AAF was always there. I mean, going back to 1984 at Memphis State, I competed in a program called the National Student Ad Competition.
Right.
Our client back then was Maxwell House Coffee.
Right.
And for those listening today, that this is pre-Starbucks and pre-K cups and all that stuff. This was you had to percolate and brew your own coffee at home, and they used the student chapters of the American Advertising Federation to develop a campaign. And our little scrappy group in Memphis did pretty well. We came in second place in our district, and we thought that was pretty good. The University of Georgia beat us, by the way, in our district.
Go Dogs.
And I still have a grudge against those guys
for
outdoing us. But at the time, and if you go back and look at the record books, they'd won 3 years in a row. They were the closest thing to a dynasty in that competition. But it taught me a lot about how a national organization can actually funnel their energies and resources to helping develop the next generation of advertising leaders. And they were very sincere about that. They wanted to help you get connections and access to advertising pros, but they also wanted you to work on a real live brand with a real live assignment and see what you had, in real life chops to offer up. And it's a tough competition. I'll assure you it is.
So even way back then, the organization was making an impact on you.
Absolutely. And now, fast forward to 2020, the NSAC, the National Student Ad Competition from the American Advertising Federation, is in its 43rd year. Last year was Adobe was our client, and then we just announced that for 2021, Tinder, the Tinder app, is going to be the client for the college kids, and they're awfully excited about that.
That's brilliant.
And so we're trying to show a diversity of brands. To go from Maxwell House Coffee to Tinder is pretty dramatic.
Sign of the times.
Yeah. But the kids are going to have fun with it, and the faculty advisors and tenured professors that we work with as part of the AAF Education Network are so supportive of this, and they want to give the kids real life examples to see how good they are. So they'll work at that.
So what does a student or university need to do at the organization on their campus? If there's not, how do they initiate a chapter? I mean, I know you guys are really, really, really good about kind of laying those programs out.
Yeah, we're closing in on 175 college chapters that have active AAF clubs on campus. Our goal is to get to 200 in that regard. So if your campus doesn't have an AAF chapter, it's pretty easy to start one up. Just start with your professor and have them work through our network, and we can make that happen. We've got a push right now for historically Black colleges and universities,
Right.
trying to
Right.
get them more involved, and you and I have talked about that, Vince. And so we're hopeful that that'll start taking up some traction and build up some speed too. But it's a great way at a college level. These are juniors and seniors in college who actually get to work on a real client with a real budget and a real assignment, and to see how good they are. And I got to tell you, after sitting through so many of these presentations, and we hope we'll get you exposed to one or two of them too,
Uh-huh.
you see how poised and how polished these kids are. It's like watching a professional pitch. It's really, really powerful.
Yeah, it's amazing their sophistication, and I love the fact that you're personally committed to it. You know, the organization's personally committed to it. I'm personally committed to it. I think we've all got to lean in and um, help these students now. They're getting a great quality education. It's in a kind of a compromised environment right now with the virtual and the Zoom and all that. It's going to be very, very tough sledding. Everybody's kind of been getting thrown into the tumble cycle pretty quick. But as we wrap up, we always like to, when we wrap, a couple things we really love to share with our listeners is, if somebody's reaching out to you on LinkedIn, email, they find you or something, what are the things that sort of get your attention, that make them stand out, that you'll respond and help create opportunities for them?
Yeah, that's a great question, Vince. I appreciate it. The first thing is to tell me that that you're involved or engaged
Right.
with the AAF chapter on your campus.
That's a big hook.
That's going to get my first priority, because I got to support those that support us, right? But my advice is twofold. One is to, I always like to say, stand out, but in a good way. I stood out much in a bad way during my college career.
Uh-huh.
But you've got to stand out in a good way and separate yourself from the crowd. And part of how you do that is to show me how you tackle a problem or what your thought process is when you break something down. And it's important that I see the thought process behind it. I don't want to just see the end result. I want to see how you got there. All those 12 Super Bowl commercials that I was involved with, I kept a book and a binder for each one that had all my notes, all my reference pieces, all of the script cuts, everything that I had to do with that spot. And each year I'd go back to, I called it the playbook. I'd go back to the playbook and see what we did right or wrong with the previous year, and then learn from that. And so I got to tell you, I was never asked by a potential employer to see a book like that, but I'd be able to produce it if they did ask. And it helped me sit down with a creative team or a production team and say, look, here's a visual reference of what I want this thing to look like. In my head, this is what it looks like. And so we don't have to rely on words. I can show you pictures of what that looks like. I could take people through my thought process and how I arrived at whatever I did. So walk me through, and I'll be very patient with you if you want to get somewhere quickly, and tell me how you came to think about something. I think that shows me two areas about you that I'm deeply interested in. One is just your innate curiosity.
Yep.
Things are made, or why things are the way they are, or how we can make this better, or whatever. I think naturally curious people make the best marketers when it's all said and done.
Spot on.
And then the second one is the creativity and the passion that come out of all that, right? I love the old saying, Vince, in kindergarten, we're all given a fresh box of crayons, and what we do with them is up to us. But, when you're first, second, third grade, you think you're an artist and you think your work is the best thing out there. And by fifth or sixth or seventh grade, you're thinking, maybe it's not for me. Maybe I need to put the crayons away and focus on something else. We're all creative in our own rights. It's just a matter of how you bring that to bear. And I want to see the creativity from you and see how you think and how you creatively problem solve. So those are the two things that will help you stand out in my work.
Right. Yeah, and they're communicating effort. They're committing. They're showing self-starting, drive, initiative. That's why I say everything you do is about building your brand, personal brand on campus. The campus, the ultimate professional lab. If there's no reason they shouldn't know everything there is about your career. Use those emotional cues and hooks to get your attention too. And we always love to ask this question last, but it's some of the greatest answers because they're not traditional. But what are some go-tos for you, whether they're books or music or podcasts or things that inform and inspire and influence your thinking and your career? And that you would share with our students that they should look up? And we hear the traditional industry resources, but we've actually heard some pretty good answers and some pretty good go-tos as well. So in the deep, vast well, what would it be for you?
Well, I'll tell you, Vince, I'm a big fan of humanity, and I believe that inherently people are good, not evil. Until people prove me wrong, I'm usually going to give them that.
Mm-hmm.
And I just did a presentation a couple of weeks ago about humanity wins, and when all this is over and said and done, I think we're going to come out of this kinder and gentler and
Yep.
maybe better human beings. I certainly hope so. For me personally, that humanity takes its place and shape by just having a small group of friends that I know I can count on, that I've developed over the years. Many of these are folks I've worked with who are the best in the business at what they do. But I carve out time each week to check in with them, see how they're doing, run some ideas past them. And I'm not talking about golfing buddies or hunting buddies. I'm talking about professional, accountable friends that will ask you how you're doing, who can be a sanity check. I worry that these days everything's a little more cold and impersonal, and maybe a Facebook friend, but are you a real friend? And,
right.
And I've got real friends that I really count on, and I can call them up in a heartbeat and get an honest answer that they're not worried about how I will perceive them or if I think they're being negative or critical. They just, they're going to shoot me straight. And it's my advisory board, if you want to call it that, but I can count on those folks to really steer me in the right way. And by the way, it's a pretty diverse group. It's not the usual suspects. And I try to be representative of the world I work in too, with this friend base. So I encourage these young people to really develop a kinship and a friendship of people that mean a lot to them, and have them hold them accountable. And don't just be bar buddies or folks that are gonna go out and have a good time. Make sure it's people that will honestly tell you the real answer and challenge you in many ways.
Yeah, everybody needs their own personal board of directors. We've encouraged, kids to seek mentors. We talk about the value of always nurturing a relationship like a plant or flower or fruit or vegetable. You got to water it, sunlight it, trim it, prune it, fertilize it, cultivate it. It's an ongoing, whether it's personal, friendship, romantic, professional. The first two letters of relationship are RE, and the first two letters of reciprocal are RE. It works both ways in a relationship. You have a lot of takers in relationships, but you always want to be a giver, but make sure that it's given back. But we could go on forever. This has been great. I'm sure you're going to have a lot of feedback and a lot of response. Steve Pacheco, the President CEO of the American Advertising Federation, all around good guy, illustrious career, Hall of Fame career, doing amazing things for the next generation of marketers and students. And look for Melt and the AAF to be doing a lot of great things together soon. So Steve, thank you for sharing your time, wit, and wisdom and inspiration with the students of Virtual Melt University.
Happy to be a part of events and love what you're doing. I want you to keep it up, encourage you in every way I can, and appreciate everybody tuning in and listening to us today. Happy to connect with you offline and steer you in the right way.
Thank you, sir.
Be well.
Thanks, Vince. Hope you enjoyed today's virtual class. We'll be back soon with another edition of Melt University 2020.